Let's now go to KwaZulu-Natal, where Deputy President Paul Mashatile will deliver the eulogy at the funeral of Sibusiso Bengu, who is South Africa's first democratic education minister in former President Nelson Mandela's cabinet. Bengu, who was also Fort Hare's first black vice-chancellor, died on Monday at the age of 90. Newzroom Afrika's Iman, Rappetti, Ziyanda Ngcobo are at the University of Zululand, where the funeral service will be taking place.
This is the nature of live broadcast, so don't sweat it, but we are off to an incredible start here at the University of Zululand. I know we're showing you pictures of the campus. Aldrin, so much history is steeped into both the university and the area, established in 1960. And incidentally, this is where Prof Bengu actually served his professorship before moving on in his academic career to do other things and to serve at other institutions like the University of Fort Hare. It is an incredible day, and I think it's a lot about history. For a lot of people who thought, well, who is Prof Bengu? We certainly got an education yesterday during the memorial service, and we'll talk about some of his accolades and accomplishments as the first education minister in South Africa under the presidency of Nelson Mandela. As you said, we are full strength today. We've got you covered from all angles. Ziyanda Ngcobo, Nobuhle Modise are with me. And Ziyanda, you were at that memorial service yesterday, listening to many people pay tribute to his life. Not far from where we're standing is the Dlangeswa High School, which he actually founded, and which we have a number of powerful alum like Justice Sisi Gampepe come through. And that was just part of people identifying the legacy that he had left in South Africa. Tell us more about that.
Absolutely. You've already mentioned steeped in history, an area such as this one, Iman, especially when you look at the alumnus who come from the University of Zululand and KwaDlangezwa High School, but also against the backdrop within which then these two institutions existed. There was a lot of violence in KwaZulu-Natal. Of course, as you would know, Prof Bengu also being the first Secretary General of Inkatha Nkululeko Yesizwe, which then became the IFP, and then leaving, of course, to go to Geneva, where he attained his PhD in political sciences. And so the backdrop against which these two institutions, well, KwaDlangezwa High School in particular, were established, it was a school of black excellence, one of the best in this area that we find ourselves in, which is not far from Empangeni, not far from Richards Bay, and really Prof Bengu educating many, such as, the MEC, former KZN Health MEC, Dr. Sibongiseni Dlomo, who reflected at that memorial with his fellow schoolmates, where they also gave a rendition of the school song about the kind of principal that he was: strict but a gentle giant, someone who was kind, even when, instituting corporal punishment, still feeling bad and even apologizing thereafter. Senzo Mchunu, who is also deemed as a relative of the Bengu clan by virtue of his mother being Umam Mchunu, reflecting on the role that he played in transforming education in our country, and that surprise that he felt when Nelson Mandela called him up to become the first democratically elected education minister in that important cabinet. You can imagine the time within which then that appointment came, not many of his stature being deemed to have capacity, but Senzo Mchunu reflecting on how it wasn't just an appointment of a black education minister, but someone who was equal to the task.
I think, Ziyanda, thanks for that background, because, again, we say this is an opportunity for the country to re-familiarize themselves with people who really laid the foundation for South Africa's new democracy and dispensation. Nobuhle, Ziyanda was talking and referred to corporal punishment. Of course, he's surprised at being tapped on the shoulder, so to speak. He did say, though, and I thought it was kind of tongue-in-cheek, that he was like, well, I do have the qualifications. I've been in the ANC and I'm well-studied, so I'm up for this task. But we talk about things like OBE and corporal punishment. Take us deeper into that story and then just set the scene for what our viewers can expect today in terms of the program.
Indeed, Iman. So we know that when he came into office, as Ziyanda has said, he was tasked for it. He was a qualified man for this particular position. And with him came a lot of reforms. I mean, he had the huge task of, amalgamating about 17 departments whose curriculum at the time was very rich in advancing just one race in particular. And so him coming into office had seen a lot of reforms in terms of the curriculum. And I must say that I'm one of those who formed part of some of those curriculums. So, a lot of people have deep stories as to regards with transitioning from black schools as they were known back then into, the multinational schools where, you had a different curriculum and you were exposed to different races. And some of these curriculums included Curriculum 2005, which was initiated around 1998. And that was underpinned by the outcomes-based educational system. Now, you'd remember that came with corporal punishment. And as much as these reforms were meant to address, inequalities in the past, a lot of researchers, educational researchers and experts, they are the ones who, said, these reforms were good at when they had to be, and some of them were not that great, especially when it came to corporal punishment. But if you grew up in a home, as a black person, as a person of color, you'd know that your parents would tell you, in school, I was beaten up, and when we went towing the line, we were beaten up. But in the new democratic South Africa, that that is kind of shied upon. But a lot of people say they are great people because of the education that they saw in the democratic South Africa.
All right, Nobuhle, certainly leaving it on a cliffhanger, a little bit controversial there, but certainly, Alden, I would say your generation is lucky to not be beaten up at school. I certainly was. And I can't say. We'll talk to my therapist about whether that was beneficial or not. But a lot happening here. Again, as I say, an opportunity for the nation to refamiliarize themselves with those who fought and won our liberation and set the tone for things like how our country's education would unfold. On that note, we hand it back to you.
Okay, and with no cane in hand, right? That is Ziyanda Ngcobo as well.
I'm wearing my headmistress dress today, I can tell you.
Iman Rappetti, Ziyanda Ngcobo as well as Nobuhle Modise. We'll be chatting to them a bit later on as well.